Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to request Ms. Deepa Tyagi, Senior Deputy Director General, Telecom Engineering Center, Department of Telecommunications, Government of India, to share her views on the need for having a national standard for IoT ecosystem in India. Ma'am, we are able to hear you. Ma'am, I request you to please join again in the audio mode. It seems you have joined in the listen-only mode. Ma'am, can you please rejoin the audio and join with the microphone? It seems you have joined in.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, ma'am, you're audible now.
Okay. Respected Secretary Telecom, Shri Anshu Prakash ji, Shri N.G. Subramaniam, Chair TSDSI, ED CDOT, Dr. Upadhyay, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Mr. Kumanal Kumar, Mr. Enrico Scaron, Chair 1M2M Steering Committee, and the distinguished members in the audience in this webinar, good afternoon to you all. It is indeed my pleasure and privilege to have been given this opportunity to share my views on this very important topic, and a topic very close to my heart, namely need for a national standard for IoT ecosystem in India, especially the smart cities. TC, as you all probably be already aware, is the national standardization body for telecom and related ICT sector. We are entrusted with the responsibility of standardization, accreditation, testing, and certification of telecom products. We have more than 650 plus standards and specifications by way of GR, IR, SR, ER, including test schedules and test procedures, TSTPs as they are called. The full list is available on the TC website. And to give impetus and fillip to the adoption of standards in India, our documents are all available for free. We are also the national inquiry point for WTO technical barrier to trade for telecom sector, while BIS is the window for rest of the non-telecom products. TEC also considers TSDSI transposed standards for adoption as national standards through a duly approved, fully transparent process involving wide public consultation involving all stakeholders. TC also provides technical support to BIS, as TC officers are chairing some very important committees in BIS. Certification of telecom products as per essential requirements is also one of the major activities that have been entrusted to TC through an Indian Telegraph Act rules amendment through a Government of India notification in 2017. Now, why is IoT and M2M is important? As we know, IoT is one of the most important emerging technologies as on date, and is instrumental and pivotal in creating smart infrastructure in various sectors, namely automotive, power, remote health management, safety and surveillance, smart homes, smart buildings, environment monitoring, pollution control, village and agriculture, and so on. These verticals will work as a pillar of a smart city depending upon the city requirement. IoT holds the promise to revolutionize and change the way all businesses, governments, and consumers interact with the physical world to come. But amid these life-transforming processes and potential of the technology also brings in its wake massive security concerns, as massive amount of data flows and is stored across the network, is exposed to vulnerabilities in the infrastructure that can be easily exploited by the threat vectors. Having trusted devices, trusted applications, trusted service providers is a key challenge. There will be billions of IoT devices in the ecosystem, and this is only going to rise exponentially in the years to come. As per the recent projections by Ericsson, there may be around 24.6 billion connected devices across the globe by 2025. Out of this, around 21% will be on cellular technologies. In India, ecosystem is to be developed for connecting 5 billion devices by 2022, as envisaged in National Digital Communication Policy 2018. Now, there is a lot of work in the international standards development organizations like ITU and 1M2M. ITU has a study group 20, which is working on IoT and its applications in smart cities and communities. ITU study group 20 has released a large range of standards related to city planners, stakeholder engagement, devices, sensors, gateways, platforms, big data, open data, smart data, governance, frontier technologies, use cases, KPIs for assessing the smartness of a city, and so on. ITUT study group 13 is yet another study group which works on future networks with focus on IMT 2020, cloud computing, and trusted IoT and M2M networks. And it has recently approved a standard titled Framework for Bootstrapping of Devices and Applications for Open Access to Trusted Services in Distributed IoT Ecosystems. This standard was driven primarily by the Indian contribution by TEC and the stakeholders and the industry. Clearly, two major challenges that are faced by the IoT M2M domain are security and trust at all levels, namely at the device level, at the network level, at the application level. And the second biggest challenge is that of interoperability. Standards-based framework for the distributed IoT ecosystem, facilitating secure data sharing, interoperability, and mix and match solutions from multiple vendors according to specific needs as they arise, thereby saving us from getting locked into vendor-specific proprietary ecosystems that limit technology choice and increase cost over time. But before we delve more deeply into the subject of standards, I would also like to briefly speak about ITU's initiative by way of United for Smart Sustainable Cities, U for SSC, which is an initiative supported by 16 other UN partners with the aim of achieving Sustainable Development Goals number 11, that says how to make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. U4SSC developed by key performance indicators, KPIs, for smart sustainable cities based on ITU standards. More than 100 cities across the globe are evaluating their progress towards smart sustainable cities objective and SDGs using these KPIs. Indian smart cities would also should be evaluated against these KPIs, as it will help our cities to be figured in the global smart city ranking. A TC would be happy to extend this expertise for this. 1M2M is yet another organization that has been doing some groundbreaking work in this area apart from ITU. They have developed specifications of M2M and IoT systems, largely on the common service layer. We have a plethora of devices at the bottommost layer connected through another plethora of communication networks, both cellular and non-cellular. And then on the top is the applications from various verticals such as healthcare, logistics, agriculture, and so on. And what is happening today is siloed vertical domain-specific networks that may or may not talk to each other. So there is clearly a need for an overarching horizontal platform in between the devices and the networks and the applications. In fact, this platform has been standardized by 1M2M, and as per ITU, this platform is going to be the brain of a smart city and should have all features like interoperability and open interfaces. I have immense happiness and pride in announcing that TEC has recently adopted this 1M2M Release 2 specifications that had been transposed by TSGSI as national standards. Of course, apart from 1M2M and ITU, BIS has also developed IoT reference architecture and submitted to MOHU. That is again predominantly based on TEC national standard of 1M2M. Apart from that, there are some other platforms as well in the ecosystem like OCF for smart buildings, which is being used by Samsung and LG. And then there is OPC UA in Industry 4.0 and the Smart City platform. So in a smart city, IoT and non-IoT data is to be converged. For this, our Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, has also developed an IUDX, which is an open source based data repository and which is going to help in converging the data from IoT platforms and non-IoT data servers. So clearly there are a lot of standards based platforms globally. 1M2M based platform is one very major platform. And what is required is to have interoperability between different standards-based platforms for sharing of data. In view of security, interoperability, and open interfaces, it is required that the platforms should be based on one or the other platform, provided they are all interoperable. The idea is not to have a restrictive system. We can have any number of platforms, provided they interoperate. So while we take great pride in adopting 1M2M Release 2 standards as national standards, now what we expect is that this is going to give a great fillip to the 100 Smart City project that the Government of India, under the leadership of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, we have embarked upon. And this 1M2M standard is going to help us in solving the issue of silos by creating a horizontal overarching common layer to create interoperability between the devices and the systems. This will also enable users and application service providers in various vertical domains to use vertical agnostic end-to-end M2M platforms with well-defined common service functionalities. This is also expected to accelerate multi-vendor deployment of M2M services, providing a level playing field to Indian startups and facilitating optimal utilization of communication layer resources. As India is in the process of developing 100 smart cities across the country, standard-based deployment would ensure interoperability, security, and multi-vendor deployments, which will help in realizing the dream of our Honorable Prime Minister for Digital India. But adoption of national standards is only the first step. It is an important step, but it's the first step in the long journey. The second most critical part is how do you ensure its implementation and its rollout in the Indian smart cities. We need to have some mechanism in place so that these platforms find deployment in every smart city deployment in the country. And the second most important challenge is to have some kind of a robust testing and certification mechanism in the country for these standards-based platforms. And we have to explore how best we can cooperate and collaborate to develop a robust and trustworthy standards-based testing and certification ecosystem in the country for IoT and M2M technologies. We, as part of the Government of India, are totally and sincerely committed to developing a digitally connected society, and 1M2M standards, which is a global standardization initiative for M2M and IoT technologies, will surely pave the way towards India's journey towards a digitally connected society and a digital world. But as far as creating a robust testing and certification ecosystem in the country is concerned, I'm happy to share that TEC has IPv6 ready logo lab in the country, in our TEC premises, and it is only one of the 8 such labs in the world. So on a similar pattern, what we need to set up is some kind of a M2M logo, kind of a mechanism through which we can test these platforms in the country and we can certify them and we can offer them some kind of a 1M2M logo, the way South Korea through its TTA has done it. So we did have some preliminary discussions with 1M2M and with HC, and through this platform today, I appeal to and I look forward to connecting more seriously, in a more serious manner, with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs for ensuring a mechanism for implementing these platforms in the smart city rollouts. And I would also like to connect with 1M2M and HC and GCF to ensure and to see how best we can collaborate and set up some kind of a testing mechanism within the country under the aegis of TEC. On this positive note, I once again compliment TSDSI and CDOT for having stitched out this conference on a very important topic. Thank you once again. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing with us the key initiatives undertaken by TEC for adopting various interoperable standards like One M2M for implementation of smart cities in the country. Ladies and gentlemen,